accept digitization, because if you don't, you're going to get left behind. Because what you have to realize is there's another business who does what you do, who is going to be digitized, who is accepting that, and people are going to go there because it's easier. We have to cater to the consumers because that's what big businesses do. And we're lucky that the technology today has enabled us to do that, and we have to take advantage of it.
The following is brought to you by Thryv, the end-to-end client experience platform that helps you get the job, manage the job, and get credit.
Hey everybody, this is Gordon Henry at Winning on Main Street, the podcast bringing you actionable insights for small business owners and entrepreneurs. This week, you get to meet Rieva Lesonsky, who runs GrowBiz Media. Rieva has been working in the small business space for like 3 decades as a content creator. She creates content for small business websites and major marketers such as Pitney Bowes, American Express, Microsoft, and many other large companies that want to connect with entrepreneurs. She also owns the small business blog, smallbizdaily.com, and she wrote the book, Start Your Own Business, on how to launch your own business and get into business for yourself. Rieva's works with Maria Valdez Aubrich, who she met at Entrepreneur Magazine over 30 years ago. Welcome, Rieva.
Thanks, Gordon. It's great to be with you.
Great to have you here, and really looking forward to just hearing your story, because you've been doing this for a while and have really seen, I think, probably a lot of changes that a lot of us are just trying to understand. So maybe just let's start with that. You've been writing and blogging about small business for 3 decades. What's changed over the years?
So the first story is when I first got to Entrepreneur Magazine in the very end of 78. So let's say 1979, you would call people, because I was a researcher. I started out as to research articles and write a few, and you'd say, "This is Rieva Lesonsky from Entrepreneur Magazine," and the only words understood in that sentence were "from" and "magazine." Right? My name is hard, and nobody knew what an entrepreneur was. Just nobody back then. And then as I like to say, sometime around the mid 80s, I was homesick. I had a strep throat. So I was sick for like 4 days, and I was watching General Hospital. And if anybody knows the story of that, there's a rich family and a doctor, and his kids were doctors, and the doctor is standing around at the nurse's station, and he's flirting with one of the doctors, and he says, "Yeah, my dad, he's a real entrepreneur." And I was like, whoa, soap opera, right? Medium of the masses. It sounds silly, but I knew that there was a shift coming.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what started it, and what really capped it was technology in the 1990s. And the recession at the end of the 80s, which resulted in a lot of women and minorities who were all told, go get your MBAs and then you'll be equal, in the 70s and 80s. And they did, but they found out last hired, first fired. So nobody had a job. And they were like, okay, what am I going to do? I'm going to start a business. It's temporary till the economy gets better. And then they found out they loved it. And so this whole entrepreneurial revolution started in the 90s, and the advent of technology and people understanding what small business was and aspiring to be small business just literally changed the whole industry. I don't want to say overnight, but it seemed at the time like it was overnight.
Yeah, no, those are great points. I agree that something changed in that period, and the tech entrepreneurs, and obviously the money that was made when the internet boom, and you go back to Mark Andreessen and Netscape and the glorification, and then Facebook and Zuckerberg and people like that, all were young, Silicon Valley, and but the idea of owning a small business, of course, it's been around for a long time, and the folks we try to talk to on this show are everyday local businesses, not necessarily tech ones. And yet, I want to ask you, there's been this small business boom and this, kind of glorification of entrepreneurs, and yet we still hear that half of all small businesses go out of business in the first 5 years, that the statistics aren't so great. So why is that?
Well, so first of all, in context, the tech revolution changed Main Street. It changed those businesses. I'm a retail brat. I grew up, I like to say I spent the first 3 years of my life in the back of a liquor store where my grandfather owned, and then my dad owned his own men's clothing store. So I understand that whole world. And the reason that businesses still today, that number has been pretty consistent over the decades,
Mm,
is because people don't plan. They don't plan properly. So they don't really know how much money am I going to need? Is this seasonal? Some businesses have seasonal spurts. Most businesses do. Like I just said, my dad had a men's clothing store. Well, you had that spurt in December, right, with Christmas and the holidays, and then you had a spurt in June with Father's Day. But if you don't know that going into your business, you're spending money every month that you may not have in August because your sales are down, sales are slow. So it's people think, here's one of the biggest mistakes I think small business owners make. They create a business plan because they're told they have to, and then they take it and they put it in a drawer and that's it. And they don't check it. They don't like
right.
say, oh, was I right? Was I wrong? Did this
Right.
mean anything? So
Right.
they didn't plan and they run out of money. So
Mm,
it's a money issue, cash
mhm,
flow, but
mm,
I think that's caused by lack of planning.
right. So do you help them with that? Is that one of the things you do, is you help people with planning, or you write about it?
We write about it. I'm not
Mhm.
for some reason people look at my LinkedIn profile and think I'm a
Uh-huh.
coach or something, and I'm
Uh-huh.
not. I mean, I'm happy to answer questions, but we write about it. We talk about how business plans are living and breathing documents, and you should always check. If you think you're going to spend this much on marketing and sales are going to be this much, and if sales are this much, is it because you spent this much on marketing? Like one thing leads to the other. Everything in small businesses interconnected. And so we talk about those things, talk about how it's about cash flow. Or maybe you wouldn't be shocked how many people think um, it's about what your sales are and not
Right.
what your profits are. It's,
Right.
sales mean nothing.
Right.
It's what comes after it, the profits that determine whether you're going to be a business or not. Stay
Yeah.
in business.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. So we're coming in, sort of out of COVID, it seems, slowly but surely with these vaccinations. Nobody can predict exactly, how quick the recovery will be, but it's starting to happen, and we're happy about that. Um, and a lot of small businesses, or I should say a lot of entrepreneurs, are starting small businesses. We've heard that
Yes.
business registrations are like at an all-time high in end of 2020, early 2021, coming out of COVID. Is that a good thing?
I always think it's a good thing as long as you do your homework, right? I think that small business ownership is liberating. It's equalizing. It gives. It's still the world of regular business still is predominantly not that open for women and minorities. There's still glass ceilings in a lot of places. So when you get to a small business, I always like to say the only thing that matters is what you're offering, how much you're charging for it, and if that's a product or a service that people want at a price they want to pay. And that's all people care about. And so you can sort of get in there and rise to whatever level you want. You get to control it. You can, I used to joke with my dad when once I, started working and understood the world of entrepreneurship that if like I compared him to Leslie Wexner, like the guy who took over his dad's clothing store in Ohio and built the Limited.
Yeah.
Like I said to my father, why couldn't that have been you? I would have been an heiress and I wouldn't have had to work at anything. But he just wanted to grow his store. He just wanted to make enough money in his store to buy a house, send us all to college, do
Sure.
those kind of things. So it varies with your own personal goals and objectives. And I think that entrepreneurs, small business owners shouldn't let anybody else define success for them. I think that is a huge problem. It's like you mentioned before, people look at Mark Zuckerberg and go, ooh, well, not everybody wants to be Mark Zuckerberg. No, but not everybody wants to build a company that big.
Right.
And so you should be able to figure out for yourself what you want, and then construct your objectives and your goals and your business plan around that, and let that take you through where you want to be, and understand that you can change your mind at any time. You can decide, no, I do want to be Mark Zuckerberg. I do want to build, a chain of stores. Or maybe you wanted to build a chain of stores and you go, no, I'm fine. I'm just going to stick with one or two that I have.
Right. Moving over to the technology piece of the discussion a little bit more, you've written about the coming or the advent of cloud technology, which is something we here at Thryv are super interested, because our product Thryv is a software solution in the cloud for small businesses. And of course, we're big advocates of small businesses adopting the cloud. In fact, we think it's critical because you need it to be competitive with big businesses, because consumers expect to be able to access everything on their phone, and they don't expect to certainly have to install complicated software, and they expect instant communication. So about moving into the cloud, why don't you just briefly say, what does it mean to a small business to move into cloud, and why is it important?
It means freedom. It's liberating. One of the things at the beginning when cloud technology first came out, I was in a room, probably 600 people, that the Los Angeles Small Business Development Center put together, and we were talking about cloud technology, and a lot of people were scared of it. And I said, how many people here use anything in the cloud? Nobody raised their hand. And I said, how many people here use Gmail? And everybody's hand goes up. And I said, it's in the cloud, people.
Yeah.
Gmail is email in the cloud. And so I think it's a matter of understanding the cloud can take a business owner anywhere. You can do what you do anywhere you want to do it. At the beginning, at the tech revolution, right? If you had an office and you needed your own server, you needed space in a big enough office to house all the equipment. You needed special heating and cooling system to keep it cooled. Once you got to the cloud, you didn't need any of that. You got to get smaller space. You got to work at home. You didn't have, that's a lot of money you didn't need to spend. So being in the cloud will save you money. It will save you time, and the cloud can take the place. And I'm not trying to advocate don't hire people, but the reason it's a lot easier to stay in business at the beginning today is because you don't need to hire people. You just need to buy the software and use it.
Right.
It's
Automate.
Who needs a bookkeeper? Who needs a lot of infrastructure is in the cloud. You don't need to hire it.
Right, absolutely. You can automate, you can modernize,
Yes.
automate, and don't need as many hands. One topic you focused on is contactless payments, and we've certainly seen with COVID, the contactless payments became an absolute necessity because nobody really wanted to get near you.
Exactly.
So why is contactless payments such an important item for SMBs to adopt?
Because of what you just said, because I think one of the problems that COVID pointed out is that consumers were a little bit more forward than a lot of Main Street businesses. Consumers had adapted technologies that Main Street business was still catching up on, or thinking, I don't really need that. Why would I need to do that thing? Consumers don't want to hand you a credit card because they don't want you to hand it back to them. They don't, they're uncomfortable. And even though the pandemic is winding down, as people get vaccinated, there's still habits that are formed. There's still questions in people's minds.
Mhm.
Consumers aren't quite there yet. So you want to keep in place things like contactless payments. So again, they're not worried. The number one, if you have a business on Main Street, if you have a store or a salon or a restaurant, your number one job is to make sure consumers are comfortable walking in your doors. And that's your number one job right now, because doesn't matter what you're selling, what your prices are, if you can't get them across, the threshold. And so it's all about comfort, and contactless payments is part of that comfort level.
Right. Well, one of the things we always talk about at Thryv is, just be easy to do business with. Don't make it hard. And
Exactly.
one of the things that makes doing business hard, I think, for a consumer, and often it's a consumer doing business with a small business, is what I call friction. It's that when things become difficult. And as an example, in the payment space, if someone sends me a bill in a text attachment, and all I do is open it up and click, and I can pay them through Venmo, which is instantaneous and takes me 5 seconds. How does that compare to me receiving a bill in the mail, having to take that bill out of the mail, print out a new, well, first of all, sign a check, probably get a piece of paper to wrap it in so it's not sitting by itself in an envelope, get a stamp, and then find a mailbox. Who needs all that, right?
Exactly.
And first, the cash flow is actually better for the business person. And it's those kinds of little elements of friction, and you multiply them by all the, I call many small businesses, they don't call you back. They don't even, sometimes they don't even have a voicemail that picks up. All those kinds of things make you say, I'll take my business elsewhere. And sometimes elsewhere is a bigger business that's just easier to do business.
Right. And with contactless payments, or almost with anything in the cloud, you get reports that come along with it, right? So it's not like you're doing this and you have to, you have to do your own report at the end of the week or the end of the day. You get back, because you're dealing with computers in the cloud, you get back reports that you don't have to, again, saving you time, saving you money. You can look and say, oh, this is what, was my accounts payable this month. This is my
Right.
receivable at a glance on your computer on the beach. You want to go to the beach, take your phone and you can check it as you sit
Right.
there.
So Rieva, you make a lot of really interesting points about this. And I think it kind of comes down to change. Like, are people or business owners willing and open to adapting to change? And many of us aren't, or it's hard for us. It's hard for anybody. Change, whether that's eating differently to lose a few pounds, whether it's going to the gym, whether it's waking up earlier, or whether it's changing your business habits as you're describing. So what if you are a business owner and you've been in business for a while and you hear everything you're saying and you're like, I get it, but I've just been doing it this way a long time. I'm just, not ready to change. I'm not comfortable. I don't know how. I'm not technological. Maybe I don't have a 25-year-old kid who can do it for me. And so I'm just not gonna. What do you say to that person?
You're not going to be in business for very long. You're just not. I was doing a report last night for one of my clients, and they're in the construction home remodeling space. And I was writing something from a conversation they'd had on a podcast they had. And one of the biggest builders, remodelers said to people, accept digitization, because if you don't, you're going to get left behind. And I think that's because what you have to realize is there's another business who does what you do, who is going to be digitized, who is accepting that. And people are going to go there for exactly what you said, Gordon, because it's easier. And the one thing, again, coming out of the pandemic is consumers have discovered the joy of curbside pickup, right? You don't have to get out of your car. You can get what you want. So one, as a consumer, it helps you budget a little more. It's not like, ooh, I want that or that or that. But two, maybe you picked up your kids from school, maybe you're on your way home from work, you don't have time. Business owners have to we have to cater to the consumers, and because that's what big businesses do.
Yeah.
And we're lucky that the technology today has enabled us to do that, and we have to take advantage of it. If you're scared, if you think, I don't know how to do this, there's so much help out there. Call your local SCORE office, go to score.org, or go to your local small business development center. There's 900 SBDCs, over 900 SBDCs across the country. There's about 400 SCORE offices. They're partially subsidized by the SBA, by the government. You can get a mentor, you can get counseling, and you can get it all for free. You don't know how to digitize? Go call SCORE and they'll connect you with someone who does and who will show you.
Yeah, great points. So I saw a chart in actually in something you wrote or was on your Small Biz Daily site. And I was sort of astonished. It showed only 7% of US full-time businesses have over $1 million in sales, 7%, and 13% have over 500K. So that's another 6%. And only 27% So I guess that's another 14%, gets you over 200K. So 27% of businesses have over 200,000 in revenue, which means 3 out of 4 businesses in the country don't even have 200,000 in revenue. They're not really businesses. They're like hobbies or gigs. I was just astonished by that. What does it mean? Is it just most people just have hobbies that make them a few bucks?
I think that they don't think they have hobbies, but I think that part of that is when you break it down and compare businesses owned by white men and businesses owned by women, and then businesses owned by people of color, those businesses owned by women and people of color have among the smaller revenues. And I think that's a function of it's harder for them to get capital. It's harder for them to borrow money. So you need money in order to grow. So that's number one. Number two is I think people just don't quite know all the things you have to do. It is not where you asked before, is it a good thing people are starting businesses? I always think it's a good thing, but you have to be realistic about it. This takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of energy. And some people start that and go, whoa, I want my life back.
Right.
For
Right.
first 2 years starting a business, I don't know that I slept. I mean, you're just, either you're waking up in the middle of the night or you're trying to do something. And I think that's um, a few weeks ago, I sent something. I was up really late and I sent an article to one of my clients. We do some ghostwriting. And it was close to 3 a.m. my time. I've gotten into very bad habits. So, and she emailed me back and said, "What are you doing up?" And she's in California too. I said, "What are you doing up?" She
Mhm.
goes, "This is what happens when you own your own business." And sometimes that's really true. And so I think that that's part of it. There's the impediment. And I just don't know. It takes a lot to build a business over $1 million in revenue. You do need to start managing a certain number of employees at that
Employees.
point,
Yep.
and it just becomes overwhelming. But we need to do it. We have to help small business owners get over that $1 million barrier. We have to.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to take a quick break and we'll be back in just a minute with more from Rieva Lesonsky.
Are you a small business owner paying too much in tax? My name is Mike Jezoshek, and I'm a CPA and host of the Small Business Tax Savings Podcast. What I want to introduce to you is our tax minimization program. All too often, we see small business owners, when they think of tax, think preparing and filing tax returns instead of tax planning. That is why we launched the tax minimization program. The goal of our program is to make sure that small business owners are paying the least amount in taxes as legally possible. As part of our program, you'll have access to a library of tax strategies along with implementation guides. So not only do you get to understand a tax strategy, but you'll have the guide on how to implement it in your business today. You also have unlimited access to our team to ask general tax questions. Have a tax strategy you want to run past us or a tax situation that came up, feel free to reach out to our team. We also do monthly group training sessions and have a private Facebook group and so much more. To join our tax minimization program, go to taxsavingspodcast.com/tax. That's taxsavingspodcast.com/tax and be on your way to saving the most taxes as legally possible.
This episode of Winning on Main Street is brought to you by Thryv, the end-to-end client experience platform that includes everything small business owners need to meet their customers' expectations. Thryv's award-winning and fully mobile interface delivers technology previously reserved for big business to the fingertips of small business owners nationwide. Thryv's built specifically for small business, but there's nothing small about what it can do. Thryv handles your entire customer experience, helping business owners reach more customers, stay organized, get paid faster, and generate online reviews, all from a single device or screen. To learn more about Thryv, visit winningonmainstreet.com and click on Get a Demo. When it comes to software to run your business, there's no comparison. Check out Thryv today.
We're back with Rieva, and we have some more to talk about small businesses. One question I wanted to ask you was, you write about small businesses getting unstuck, which isn't the same thing as just having normal business problems. Why do people get stuck, and how do you help them get unstuck?
People get stuck. This is my friend Barry Moltz, who has written a lot of books, and I work a
Yep.
lot with Barry. This
Mhm.
is his thing. His thing is he wants to help people get unstuck. And it's people get in their own way, and it's a variety of reasons. Sometimes we're not comfortable with success. We're not sure how people are going to treat us, how people will think about us, and so we kind of say, oh, in your head, it's not this is not a conscious thing about, oh, people aren't going to like me, so I'm going to stop my growth. You just kind of just sort of self-sabotage in little ways, so you can't get there. They get stuck because what we've talked about, this is how we've always done it, so they're in that rut because that's not the way people do it anymore. And so to get people unstuck, to me, it's about knowledge, right? I can't convince you to do anything. I'm not, it's not my job to do that either. My job is to educate you, is to show you why this is better. I'll tell you why it's better to offer contactless payments. I'll tell you why your retail store needs to continue to do curbside pickup. And then you need to read that, or, read other people and make that decision. That's up to you to decide, yes, I'm going to do that. You can't, it's not like pulling somebody out of quicksand. It's about maybe educating them to say, oh, this is how I get out of quicksand, and make them realize they're stuck. Sometimes people don't get that they're stuck, and they don't realize that the rest of the world is doing all this while they're still doing that.
Right. You said you're not a business coach. Do you recommend business coaches to people? Is that something you think people should do generally, if they can?
I think so. I mean, I don't know necessarily a coach. I'm the biggest proponent of SCORE that exists, right?
Okay.
I
Yep.
have people who used to live next door to me who started a business like 20 something years ago when they were
Mm.
very young. And they're still growing that business. And one of the brothers said to me about a year ago, like, what do I do with this? And I'm like, I have no idea. But here's the SCORE counselor I met. Just call him. And the business is here in California. The counselor is in DC, and they still talk at least once a week. And the other day, my friend called me up and said, what do I do about this? I said, don't ask me, go call Hal. And he calls me back like 2 hours later. He goes, you were right, Hal solved my problem. So I mean, some people like the coach, like, somebody who's going
Yeah.
to sit there and hold you accountable. And
Right.
sometimes maybe you need to invest that money, so you think, I'm investing money, so
Right.
I'm going to do it.
Right.
But to me, you can't go wrong with SCORE and the SBDCs.
Yeah. Excellent. Excellent. Uh, Recommendation. I agree. Those are fantastic organizations. So you write a lot about marketing in general, and for small businesses and social media, many of the new tools available. Do you recommend small businesses do their own marketing and learn how to use these tools, or should they hire someone to do it for them?
Hire it out, right? I mean, you have to have a little bit of knowledge. You have to know why it's important, but the way a small business gets to above $1 million is to spend their time on sales, and product development. What am
Right.
I going to do? How am I going to do it? And what is that? You don't have time to sit there on Twitter and do this yourself. So
Right.
you want to hire this stuff out. It won't cost you a lot of money. There's so many third-party tools. So if you can invest in the tool, and investing in the tool will cost you what, $200 a year? I mean, it's not a lot of money to subscribe to a tool. And hire somebody. Don't use an intern. That's a big mistake, people.
Right. Right.
Interns are in and out of your business. That's not going
Right.
to help you.
High school.
But hire either a person, hire an agency. There are agencies that do this for not a lot of money, and let that supplement what you do and how you I just got an email last week from one of my cousins who said, okay, I don't know what to do. I know I'm doing social media wrong. So I said,
Mm.
well, send me all your things, and I'll take a look at it. And then, I mean, I can't do it for her, but I'll, see if I can recommend some people who could help her or some tools to make that work.
Yeah. Yeah, well, shameless plug, but Thryv offers our software product as well as advertising, and particularly with the software product, we offer a ton of client support that's no extra charge because we view it as our job to make sure the small business succeeds. So when someone buys the software, first of all, they talk initially and get a demonstration from somebody who's a Thryv expert, who can do a Zoom with them. They don't have to be sitting next to them, and then they have onboarding support to learn how to use the software. And then they have ongoing support where we actually have a way to kind of keep an eye on people electronically to see if they're engaging with the software. And if they're not using it on a regular basis, somebody will ring them up and say, hey, it looks like you're not using it that much. Can I help you? So like you say, there's a lot of help out there.
That is the biggest difference between when I started and today. There's so much help out there. There's so much information out there. You just have to take advantage of it. And I think more than anything else, software programs like what you just talked about with Thryv are the difference between success and failure. That is what's going to take a business owner from spending so much time, wasting time doing things that they're not good at to begin with. You have to be good at this. So you either need the tools to make you good at it or just let it automate the process and let it go.
Yeah, absolutely. We just have a few minutes left, Rieva. First of all, wanted to ask you on a personal level, what's next for you? You've been doing this for a long time. You can continue doing this. You got any new plans?
New plans. I'm a friend of mine and I are talking about maybe launching a community for small business. I mean, this is my life. I've been doing this for most of almost basically all of my adult life. So, and I love it. I love helping small businesses. So I will continue to do that. We will be maybe launching, like I said, a community where we can help, lead people in the right direction, give them information, introduce them to one another. So we're working on that right now. But for me, this, I'm going to die doing this. So.
Okay. All right. I wanted to ask, as I ask most of our guests, you write and create a lot of content. You probably absorb quite a bit of content too. Are there any books or podcast, any particular thing you think an audience of small business owners could benefit from?
Yeah, so I think there's a lot of information out there. I think depending on what your level is, small business trend, our website. Obviously I have to shameless plug there, but there's a lot of other websites that are really good. Small Business Trends, allbusiness.com, that, and it's all, those are free, right? Inc. Magazine, has Inc. Magazine's Twitter feed is just, it's continuous, tons of information that they're throwing at you to learn there. Score's website is really huge with a ton of content and free templates and things like that. There's a ton of information. Just go to sba.gov and there's a whole lot of information on the SBA site itself. But I also think that entrepreneurs can learn a lot from not reading business books, from, there's a lot of lessons to be learned from things that are not necessarily, I think one of the best columns I ever wrote was making the connection between the movie Field of Dreams and entrepreneurship. And it just hit me one day when I was watching a rerun of it, because I love that movie, that there's that connection, and that still inspires me, decades later. So look for that, look for the connections, the moments of inspiration that you can find outside of business that can propel you forward.
Yeah, great. Last question, Rieva. You're so busy with all your business. Do you have anything outside that you do for fun? Are you a swimmer, a golfer, a runner, a walker?
No. I'm not a very big athletic participant, but I am a huge baseball fan. Opening day on
Yeah.
April 1st was a huge day in my house. My husband and I, we were like,
Nice.
okay, we put on our jerseys and that my dad raised me to love baseball, and I just love baseball.
Well, I know you originally started on the East Coast and now are on the West Coast. Who do you root for?
So my father raised me to be a Yankee fan. Even
Uh-huh.
he was born and raised in Brooklyn, and I think
Yeah.
his one act of rebellion, because my grandfather was a Dodger fan, was
Dodgers.
to
Yeah.
root for the Yankees. So
Right.
my father raised us to be Yankee fans. So I still root for the Yankees, but my husband's from Minnesota. So
Hmm.
those are the games that are on in my house every single day. So I've
Got it.
become a Twins fan too.
Okay, nice. Well, I'm glad you're going to get to enjoy this season. Looks like it's going to start off more normal than last time.
Yes.
So good. Well, we're about out of time, but I really wanted to thank you for stopping by, Rieva. It's been nice chatting with you and great information for small business owners.
Thank you, Gordon. I really appreciate it. And I just, I love what you do. The fact that you're doing this podcast, the fact that you've created this software that just helps business owners. To me, that's kind of what we all need to do, is what can we do to make a business owner smarter, and better at what they do. So thank you.
And for you out there listening, if you enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe and tell a friend or colleague to subscribe and leave us a 5-star review. We'd really appreciate it. So until next time, make it a great week.